Hello, my name is Jackie Kirkup. Welcome to Spotlight on Souris. Today is Wednesday, March the 26th, 2025. I have with me here Sergeant Mark Hume of the RCMP. Welcome, Mark.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you here to talk to us about some RCMP things here. And I would just like to make mention at this time, Mark grew up in Souris and did his schooling here. And so super exciting for me to be kind of on an opposite chair here with him in his uniform. And he's had already a 25-year career. Is that correct?
That's right. I kind of started my career here, I guess. I started as an auxiliary or volunteer constable in the community for 3 years before I joined. So 28 years since I started that.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Wow. You're probably going too. How's that? 28 years.
I'm hoping for 5 more. We'll see.
Okay. I know, Mark, and this is maybe getting a little bit personal, but I know you do live in the community, so the roots are here and you're being settled.
I moved back about 2 years ago.
Nice.
So it's nice to be back in the community.
Yeah, wonderful.
We'll retire here for sure.
Okay, excellent. And you do have some children, I understand, involved in some sports.
Yeah, I have 2 stepsons involved in different sports in the school and stuff.
Nice to have you back and, a family here to join us. And and I'm sure your parents are also excited to have you.
I was glad to see that the town hadn't shrunk at all. It's nice to see a small town staying up there or growing, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a bustling place in the in the winter time. Wonderful. Mark, can you just maybe explain to us where you work in the RCMP?
Sure. So I'm in charge of the Northwest Traffic Services, which consists of the North Traffic Services up in the Paw and the Westman Traffic Services in Minnedosa. So our job is to patrol the whole western and northern parts of the province, doing proactive traffic enforcement. So we're the people giving you tickets.
Okay.
And catching the impaired drivers and somewhat going to collisions and investigating collisions and that kind of stuff. Generally, we wouldn't be interacting with you at calls for service in the community. If it was an emergency, we obviously go and help out, but that's not our primary job.
Okay. So in Souris, it is part of the Blue Hills detachment area, I guess.
So Blue Hills area consists of Brandon, Carberry, and Souris detachments.
Okay.
And they all work as one unit.
Okay. That's a lot of area to
it
cover.
is. So that's just a little bit west of Sydney to Griswold and down to Elgin, north to Rivers or up almost Rapid City. It's a pretty big area.
Yeah, it is a pretty big area. Mm-hmm. I often, may hear people comment sometimes that, there's not always a presence in the community or, anywhere of RCMP officers. Is that, are there vacancies in this area or is it fully staffed?
To my knowledge, it's fully staffed in this detachment. Fully staffed with people. There are a few people on medical leave, so there is some vacancies. I think a difference from when I worked here 28 years ago when the detachments were separate maybe was, typically the vast majority of calls you went to, the members would go alone. Whereas now the violence is a lot worse, drugs, alcohol. Generally speaking, it's taking 2 officers to go do quite often what 25, 30 years ago one officer was doing. So I think that makes it feel like there's less presence, I guess, when 2 officers are going such a distance to one call.
Yes.
Whereas I think in the old days it was a little more spread out.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yep, absolutely makes sense. It makes sense to me, a safety perspective, really.
Right.
I understand you're trying to keep us all safe, but you need to be safe
I'd say things have got a lot more violent in the last 25, 30 years.
Right.
So I think that's changed a little bit, which is reflected into the appearance of less police.
Right.
Yep.
Mark and I just were chatting just earlier before we started taping here, and Mark had mentioned that there is an RCMP officer living in the barracks.
Yes.
I know they've been empty for quite some time.
Yeah, for a long time. So a new officer moved in just a few weeks ago, I think. So he's not new to the area. He's been with the Blue Hills for a few years, but he moved into the community. Okay. So there's another officer living in the community.
Yeah. That's excellent, and I think will be pleasing for people to know that information.
And just involved in the community. The first couple of days I saw him out walking his dog, things like that. I think the public wants to see the police in their community, whether it be grocery shopping or whatever it is, not just be the police officer.
Right, and we talked a little bit about that too. Sometimes it's not, you come as a couple, and you might be the RCMP officer, and your wife or husband is a teacher, and
Right.
they might not be able to get a job here. So,
Right, I think that's been part of the problem why officers aren't living in smaller towns. And it's not just here, it's in all small towns. But, we're hiring people, what we say, with life experience. They're older than the 19-year-olds that we used to hire, and that comes with family and a spouse. And, most people these days are dual income.
right,
And they're looking for other jobs for their spouses and other opportunities for the kids. And sometimes the small town just doesn't have that second job, or it's not available the exact moment they're transferring.
right,
And it results in a lot of them, hubbing in the Brandon area or, in the Verdon area versus Reston, Melita, which they're joined with, or places like that.
right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Mhm.
We chat a little bit about recruitment.
Sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind touching on that, and kind of give us a view of what that might look like and
Right.
how someone might, if interested, could apply.
Sure. So I would say we're pretty desperately short right now. Probably the shortest in my career. I think the provincial commander announced a few months ago, I think upwards of 250 short in the province. I think about 10% of our positions are vacant. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are struggling a little more than the other provinces, but it's across the country. Part of that is a bit of a lack of recruiting, or not recruiting, lack of recruitment, I guess. Across the Western world, both the militaries and the police have really been struggling in the last close to a decade to hire people, to recruit people in. Second problem with that, I think, is just the numbers of every police force is recruiting, and we have to process people faster because we're going to lose them to another agency.
Right.
Right? Again, in my personal opinion, the old days of I want to wear that red serge and be a Mountie versus a city police officer in a different province or a different city, it's not there as much with the current generation. They might apply to 5 different police forces in the same week, and the first one that calls them back is where they're going.
Right, right.
So we got to be quick, and
Yeah.
we're working towards streamlining the process so
Okay.
that they're getting the call back from us before other agencies,
Right.
hopefully.
Right.
Whereas maybe 25 plus years ago, maybe the RCMP was your third call, but you're holding out for them because I want to wear that red
Yeah,
serge.
yeah.
And
That's an interesting.
it's not, I don't think it's there the same as in the current generation.
So if they're, say I'm grade 12, I'm graduating, I'm definitely, okay, I'm
Yep.
thinking about the RCMP. What do I do?
It's online now, so you can start out by going online to the recruitment page on the public website. Only need to be 19 years old when you graduate from the
Okay.
training academy in Depot in
I see.
Regina. So we are having people go into training as early as 18, as long as they're going to be turning 19 before the end of their 26 weeks of training.
Okay,
High school diploma is the minimum, but a policing diploma from places like ACC or I went to Lethbridge Community College are definitely a bonus, but they're not necessary. Lots of
Right.
people have degrees in various things, but the minimum is high school diploma.
right. And 26 weeks, that's all the training?
Could be
Sorry,
28
sorry.
now. I think it's still
Sorry, I don't mean to
26.
put
No,
you
no,
on the
yeah, it's
spot,
about
but I
6
guess
months.
what I was thinking,
Yep.
that doesn't seem like a very long time
It's
to
not.
learn
Right.
what I think you need to know.
So you do 6 months approximately in Depot in Regina. You learn the basics, and then you come out to a detachment, and you spend 2 weeks or 2 months, riding with a training officer. You stay working with that training officer for a full 6 months before
Right.
you're.
Oh, I see.
And then if you're cleared to be off of training, then you're out on your own.
Yeah,
So a lot of it is done on the job, I guess. And a large
makes sense.
and part of that is we're a national police force, but every province has provincial law.
Okay.
So we're not learning provincial law at the academy
see.
because, there's either 24 to 36 people in your class or in your troop, and they could be going across the country.
Right.
In my group of 24, we had someone go to every province except PEI.
Okay.
So there's no way to teach provincial law at Depot.
Absolutely not.
So you're learning a lot of that when you get here from your field training officer.
Right. A long time ago, and maybe this is still a thing, and again, maybe putting you on the spot, but there was always a thing as, or I felt like people would talk about, an RCMP officer just, graduating, and all of a sudden they're gone, like as far north as north can go for their first
Right.
few years, and they do this northern,
Quite often. Now it's changed a little bit. There's a little bit of, I forget what the actual term for it, but they're letting people pick where they're going
I see.
to try to recruit more.
Right.
That has its pros and its cons because Manitoba and Saskatchewan are not typically the first picked provinces, right?
Yeah.
We're typically the last chosen provinces. BC, Alberta, Nova Scotia are typically the first three choices.
Wow.
And Manitoba and Saskatchewan are usually the last.
Yeah.
But that helps send people, there's no point in losing those people by sending them somewhere they really don't want to go.
Right.
When there's 100 other police forces that are begging to have them.
Yes. Yeah.
So we try to keep people happy and send them where they want to go.
Right.
A lot of people choose to go up north first and get it over with while they're young and single.
Yes.
Before they, have a family and come down south. It differs.
Yeah. So that is a maybe still a bit of a thing that they might get a northern post at maybe some point in their career.
For sure.
Yeah.
In Manitoba, you will, for sure.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing where you've all been?
I have lucked out and I have not gone north.
Oh, wow.
So I started in Crystal City, which was part of what was called Pembina Valley Detachment. Then Crystal City, RCMP is now closed. It's policed out of Morden. Due to a back injury, when I was ready to transfer, I couldn't go up north just because I needed some surgery. So I went to a traffic unit in Verdun, Westman Traffic Services. And then from there, each of my next moves was a promotion in rank. And when you promote, the RCMP doesn't tell you where to go. You apply for a promotion. If you get it, you go. So I lucked out into not going north when I was young because I promoted the field I wanted to. And then as I got older, I just kind of settled in my specialty and I've lucked out and not had to go.
Yeah.
So I went from Verdun, I promoted to a corporal, the first supervisory rank in Dauphin, and I commanded Riding Mountain Traffic Services.
Okay.
And then in 2015, we closed Westman Traffic Services in Verdun and Riding Mountain Traffic Services in Dauphin. We combined them together and moved to Minnedosa.
Oh, I see. And
then I promoted one more rank to run the combined unit. And I've been there for 10 years coming this summer.
Wonderful. Well, that's, an amazing career.
I've been incredibly lucky to be, my farthest from home was 2 hours.
Wow.
So that's not normal, but it's been very good.
Yeah, good. I think it's important that, nice that you were able to share that and, get those, kind of understanding how a bit of the process, might work.
For sure. And I've done some northern policing for short periods of time, but I have not lived up there for a while.
Yeah.
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 So.
I just was thinking about recruitment a little bit more. If say there, could you go to the depot and just say have a bit of a tour just to kind of get,
well, I say for sure.
Something I really want to do, but I don't understand enough, or is there?
You can definitely go there. I know the museum side of it is all open. During COVID and some security issues, the tours were canceled for a while.
Right.
I would honestly have to check to see if the tours are open again. But even in the museum now, there's barrack rooms that are kind of set up so people can see. I do a school talk for grade 6 kids every year, and I show them pictures of the new barracks versus the old. They're quite shocked. When I was there in the old barracks that were built in the 50s, and I think they were used until 2012, it was 32 or 36 people to a room. To a long dorm.
Wow.
Now they have private stalls, so they have like half walls and a curtain for a door, so they get a little bit of privacy. My privacy between my bunkmate was a wooden board, so we didn't face to face.
Oh my gosh.
Our beds were about 2 inches apart.
Yeah.
So it's changed.
Of course.
People get a little more privacy now. I know for people that hadn't played team sports, I think the privacy was a bit of an issue. I know people would walk in and like, what? I got to live with other people. I have to shower in an 8-person shower. I have 6 toilets lined up in a row, and I don't have as much privacy as normal. So now they have a little bit of privacy.
Right. Oh, well,
so it's a little better.
That sounds better.
Yep.
Definitely sounds better. Speaking of you talking about wearing the red serge, can you give some examples of where you maybe be wearing that red serge? Or called upon to wear the
generally
red serge?
speaking, we would wear it Remembrance Day, special events like that, various ceremonial things. I know Dennis Affleck was a local RCMP officer that got me into my career. I wore that to his funeral when he passed away. You don't see it as much anymore.
Right.
shouldn't say not as much. I guess it's at special events, so it's
Right.
not an everyday thing.
No.
I know some people see us on TV and think that's what we wear, but and to this day, I was approached in Mexico once. People recognized my tattoo as a Mountie.
Oh, wow.
And the wife said, "Oh, that must be so great," and the husband said, "Well, if you like that kind of thing." And I said, "Like what kind of thing?" He says, "Well, wearing that red suit and riding horses every day."
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm only talking 10 years ago. I said,
Wow.
"Well, we don't ride horses every day, sir."
Yes.
And they had no idea. People see
Right.
that on TV and they think
Yeah.
we still wear that and ride horses
Yeah,
every day.
yeah.
And even in Canada, I had a person ask once when they heard I was on traffic, and it was a young person, but they were dead serious. And they said, "But how does your horse keep up with the cars?"
Isn't that something?
And I assumed they were joking, and it was a teenage person, and they were not joking.
Wow.
That's what they see on TV. That's
Yeah.
what they think. And so yeah, we don't.
Yeah, isn't that something?
You're not going to see us in the red surge.
No. Oh, no.
Right?
No.
And even the uniform from when I started is very different. It's much more tactical now. We're
Okay.
wearing vests. We're wearing lots of stuff on it.
Right, right,
You know, I've heard a lot of comments about how, I guess, tactical we look.
right. You have a very important job to do, and you need
Well,
to be.
like I said, it's become more dangerous, so we carry a lot more things that we didn't carry years ago.
Right, yeah, yeah. Interesting, it's to hear that perception
Mm-hmm.
of, you know,
It's interesting what other countries think of us.
yes,
They see that red surge and they think that's what we wear every day.
right, right.
Yeah.
But they recognize that too, and
Yep,
the
for sure.
important, it's important, right? That
Yep.
red surge is important.
I'd say almost every holiday I've been on, someone's recognized a tattoo and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're with the Mounties in Canada."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Just back to the barracks for
Sure.
a moment. I meant to talk about criminal record checks and vulnerable sector checks.
Right.
That does seem to be something that more and more committees maybe are requiring,
Almost
or
every job, almost every employer.
yeah, or even to chaperone like a school trip,
For sure.
that kind of thing. So, what is the process to do that?
So that's simply going to any detachment now. It used to be at your local detachment. We've switched that up to any RCMP detachment. I don't know the specific days of the week, but there is a clerical staff in Souris now, and they're open a few days a week. She's training, so it's sporadic right now, so I
Right.
would call. But you go in there with 2 pieces of ID. One of them must be photo. The other one can be like a health card or a government card
Okay.
that's not photo. It takes a week or two. They'll process both of them, call you back, give you copies of it.
Excellent.
And again, we were talking before, it's a snapshot in history, so, or in time, I should say. So there's no expiry date on it, but it's saying today that person has no criminal record.
Right.
Tomorrow could be a different story.
Right.
There's going to be no phone call saying, "Oh, by the way," right? So it's a snapshot in history. Does that person currently have a criminal record or
Right.
anything?
Yeah, okay. Lovely to hear that there is somebody going to be here in our local community,
Yep.
working in the office.
So now you have clerical staff and you have a member living in the barracks there.
Excellent,
So
yeah.
it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely it is. Yeah, I think our viewers would definitely be happy to
For
hear
sure.
that news.
Yep.
Just to allude to the the staff working in the office, possibly a 3-day a week, unsure, but definitely call
think so.
ahead
Yeah.
if you need to go there, just to ensure that there's somebody there for you.
For sure.
Yeah. Also, too, Mark, we chatted a little bit about equipment.
Yes.
And I know there's something that's brand new that's just happened in a
Right.
couple of weeks for the officers
Right.
to wear.
So the RCMP is getting body-worn cameras now, so we wear in our chest. They're coming out across the country. It's kind of in a 3-stage thing, but in this area of the province, we got them about a month ago, 3-4 weeks ago. So every frontline officer will be wearing one. They'll be visible on the officer's chest. They're about the size of a cell phone, and there's 3 lights on it. So you're going to see a green light when the camera is on but not recording, and you'll see 3 red lights flashing when it's being recorded. So the idea behind the lights is that so the public can actually see that we are wearing one.
Right.
If it's a safety hazard to have the flashing lights illuminating the officer, they have the ability to shut the lights off if they're going into like a gun call or something. We
Right.
don't want a flashing bullseye in our chest.
Yes.
But generally speaking, there's going to be those lights. So people are going to see if we're being recorded, or if they're being recorded. So we will record any kind of public interaction that is work-related. So if
Okay.
I go into a gas station to gas up my car, I'm not going to be turning it on.
Right.
But if I go into that gas station because there's been a call for service, then I'll be turning it on.
Right.
You know, if I come to the rink just to do a walkthrough and see what's going on at the rink, I won't have it on. But if someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, there's a fight over there," then I'll turn it on.
Okay.
The other thing that is new, it is the first ever RCMP policy that is open to the public. So the public is going to be able to read our policy on when and how we use it.
Okay.
So the officers will actually carry a card with them that they can
Okay.
give you, and you can scan it and pull up the RCMP policy.
Isn't that interesting?
So it's the very first transparent policy
I
that
see.
the public can see without an Access to Information Act
Right.
request or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is, yeah,
So-
wow,
Yeah, big changes, I think.
for sure.
We view it as positive changes. I think almost any officer you talk to is happy to be wearing a camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many more things seem to be happening,
Yeah.
and
And
it's important,
it
I
gives a
feel.
real live perspective rather than the armchair quarterback maybe hours, days, months later when people are
Yeah.
complaining about what happened or suggesting things happen. It's a simple playback of the video.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
Got
the
it.
be all end all. It's one view. It's not the officer's peripheral vision. It's not a
Right.
view from other places, but it is the main view from the officer.
Right,
And it'll help put some truth, I guess,
Yeah.
to what's happened.
yeah, wow. Well, that's exciting that, this area was able to get theirs, and.
Yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah, definitely a big change, and definitely, I think, a change in the right direction
Yep, for sure.
for yourselves and,
Yeah.
others.
And the delay in getting it was actually not the cameras, it's the data storage, right? Every police force is
Yeah.
facing, there's a huge, huge amount of data storage.
Right,
So it's all stored on a cloud-based
Mm-hmm.
evidence system. So that's the big technological
right.
issue with it.
Yeah, I can only imagine
Right,
the
yeah.
technology behind it.
For sure.
I don't work there.
And in the remote places where we work, maybe not down here, but further up north, is internet access to download those cameras
Okay.
regularly.
Right,
Right, because it's all being downloaded to a cloud, and we're working in detachments that don't necessarily have
Yeah.
functioning internet all
yeah,
the time.
wow.
So
Huh,
it's been a
lots of
challenge.
things to think about,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else, Mark, that we might not have touched on, that you might think may be great public awareness?
Not a
Again, don't mean
huge-
to put you on the
no, not a
spot, I kind of
huge
just
thing.
looking through my list of topics that.
The last kind of public talk I did, there was a lot of talk about the over the phone and door-to-door scams of
Oh,
send me money.
yes,
Don't send people money. They asked me for some tips on that. Really, the tip was don't do it.
right,
I mean, there's a couple of different scams. Some are, claiming to be various businesses. There's one going around where they're claiming that they are the police, and specifically the RCMP, and you owe fines or you owe stuff, and you're going to get arrested if you don't pay
Right.
it. We don't call people and ask for money.
no,
And another one that has been very common that a person brought to my attention directly a couple weeks ago, the person got a phone call one evening from a person that claimed to be their son's defense lawyer and said, your son has been arrested, he's in jail, we need $500 for bail money, can you e-transfer us?
wow,
And the guy said, no problem, but I will come down to the court and give it to you in person.
Wow.
And then the person freaked because there was no son in jail, but he knew the son's name, all his particulars, he knew the father's name and all of his particulars. It was very convincing.
wow,
And I'm told they get this off various social media things you use.
right,
You click on a survey on social media and fill out a couple of things, that's where they get it.
yeah, before you know it.
So, we hear a lot of calls of, oh, my grandchild needed money, my grandchild was injured, my grandchild was in jail.
Yeah,
Make sure it's your grandchild before you're sending
that's
money.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, don't send money is clearly the
Pretty much, don't
message.
send people money.
Don't send people money, but if people are getting, say, these calls, they need to,
For sure.
report them,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, call and report it, and we will probably pretty easy gonna be able to tell you, hey, don't do it. It's not real.
Right.
Especially if they're claiming to be the RCMP, or they're claiming that someone's in jail and needs bail money. I mean, we can check that pretty quick and say, no, your loved one's not in jail.
Right,
And in the case, the gentleman that told me that story, he said as soon as he hung up, he called his son, and his son was
Yes.
sitting in Brandon watching TV at his house.
Yeah.
He was not in the public anywhere. He definitely wasn't in jail. So they'll use anything to
yeah, they're
get
savvy,
money.
right?
And the vast majority of these originate in other countries, so it's not even something that we can police and prosecute and get your money back. This is happening in foreign countries.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
don't send people money.
yeah. Whether it's a phone call or an email
Right.
you receive,
Right.
anything,
Know who
you
you're
just
sending
have to
money to.
be,
Yeah.
kind of beware,
For sure.
right, of these
Or
things.
call first and just look into it first.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's one of
Yeah.
the biggest complaints I hear in the small towns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I never thought about that. I'm glad you brought that up because, I know, say, a target might be the older generation that
Right.
maybe
Yep.
don't know better or not
sure.
aware of the technology, but it like I get things like that,
Yep.
you know, emails and the phone calls.
We do.
And so, yeah,
We get phone calls at work on our work numbers of people asking for money, and you tell
Yeah.
them who they are and they hang up pretty quick.
Yeah.
They don't realize they've phoned the police station.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I've gotten in a real habit more so of, you know, no caller ID when it comes
For
up
sure.
on my phone. I'm not picking up the phone,
Yep.
or if I don't recognize the number,
Right.
you know, they can leave me
The
a message.
technological
and-
scams are getting so sophisticated.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. As the technology, right, gets
For sure.
sophisticated
Yep.
too. Often I don't know everything that even my phone can do.
Well,
so
and the new AI thing where they're impersonating voices even.
Yes.
Right? It sounds like your loved one that is asking for money, and it isn't, right? It might be as simple as saying, I'll call you back in a few minutes then to see if this is real,
right, yeah.
right?
So those are good tips that people can, you know,
Yep.
like say, you know.
For sure. Yeah, look into it first. They don't need money in the next 10 minutes, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah.
So look into it, call family, call the police,
Yeah. Yeah.
call
good.
that person,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
For sure. Okay. Well, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I'm sure that is, you know,
Yeah, it's a
good
common-
info
yeah,
and
it's
a
a
common
common thing
thing.
here.
Right.
Yep.
Anything else, Mark?
I don't know, I think that's the big stuff for
Yeah,
now.
I think so too. Yeah, it was a pleasure having you here. It's been a
Good.
long time since we've
Yep,
seen each other,
for sure.
so it was nice to definitely catch up. And I think this is something maybe, you know, a few times a year,
sure.
perhaps. Maybe it's
Yep.
something that maybe we can have this conversation again and
For sure.
just have some general discussion and see what's happening.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, again, a pleasure to have you, and thank you
Great.
for your service.
Thank you.
This has been Spotlight on Souris for Wednesday, March the 26th, 2025.